Hello and welcome. I'm Edwin Blanton from the University of Texas at San Antonio and president-elect of the Society for Experiential Education, and I would like to welcome you all here today. The Society for Experiential Education, SEE, is formally known as the National Society for Experiential Education. And while our name is new, our organization is not new and has been supporting experiential education for over 50 years. Our annual conference is coming up this September, from September 25th through the 27th in Orlando, Florida, and I hope many of today's guests can join us then. Registration will be opening soon. This webinar is being brought to you through a collaborative effort between us and one of our 2022 silver sponsors, Ripen. Now I'll turn it over to Dave Savory from Ripen.
Thanks, Edwin. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here with us today. If you're willing and able to do so, feel free to put your name and where you're from in the chat. We have a fantastic panel and are really excited to discuss how disruptive technologies are impacting student engagement and challenging learners' abilities to acquire the skills needed in the workplace. We'll be exploring various strategies to address these challenges. So for today's agenda, we're going to do a round of introductions of our amazing panelists. I'm going to give a very brief overview of how Ripen supports work-based learning and discuss some of the equity and accessibility issues with the traditional work-based learning models. And finally, before opening it up to our panel, we'll shed some light on the current state of disruptive technologies on our education system. So we certainly hope this is an engaging session for everyone, so please feel free to drop questions and comments in the chat as we go, and we'll be ending with a Q&A. So I'm thrilled to be joined by two incredible leaders and innovators in the space, and we'll hand it over to Annie and then Ali to introduce themselves and their work.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. It's wonderful to be here. My name's Annie Curtin, and I am the lead for experiential learning design at the University of Arizona. I work within the Student Engagement and Career Development Department, formerly known as Career Services. And our mission is to support all undergraduate students in defining their career goals, their career clarity, and helping them with their positive career outcomes when they graduate. And specifically, my work focuses on supporting faculty across campus to help them build their own capacity to integrate community engagement and work-based learning into their curriculum.
Annie, I'm so excited for the discussion we're going to have today. But hi, everyone. My name is Ali Danziger. I'm the CEO of a company called Ampersand. We have a software platform that upskills early career professionals and teaches the unwritten rules of the workplace, really focused on breaking systemic barriers in place from education to employment, working with schools across the country to teach the durable skills and soft skills required in the workplace. So excited to dive in and talk more.
Thanks, Ali. Thanks, Annie. My name is Dave Savory, co-founder and vice president of experiential learning at Ripen. In my day-to-day, I work with various stakeholders from industry, academia, nonprofits, and funding partners to design and launch work-based learning initiatives for learners. All right, let's jump into it. We're going to start things off with a poll. So really quickly, should real-world and authentic projects be a core component of modern education? Give it a few more seconds here. All right, that is a very overwhelming yes from the audience, so we agree as well. All right, so really quickly, just briefly, for those unfamiliar with our work, Ripen is a work-based learning platform that enables higher education institutions and training providers to provide meaningful, high-quality, high-impact work-based learning opportunities for learners. We launched this company because we saw a gap in traditional internship and co-op models. While traditional internships are a fantastic way for students to gain experience, we realized this model isn't accessible and necessarily right for every student, and certainly isn't right for every employer. So we really focused on creating a model where employers can easily unbundle traditional internships into short-term, skill-specific projects that can be embedded directly into the course curriculum and or offered as virtual project-based internships. Our mission is to eliminate underemployment. And over the past 5 years, 100,000 unique learners have participated in over 175,000 work-based learning experiences. We're currently working with just over 430 academic institutions and training providers. More importantly, though, there are close to 8,000 educators and program managers using Ripen every semester to deliver work-based learning opportunities in their programs. Collaborative and impactful work-based learning doesn't happen without both academic programs and industry partners working together to facilitate these experiences. Since day one, Ripen's been multi-sided. Our open marketplace has been multi-sided, and we're very fortunate to work with a diverse community of startups, charities, nonprofits, family businesses, and large employers. There's currently just over 27,000 industry partners who are actively posting projects on the platform in which they are looking to connect with and collaborate with academic programs whose courses align with their various project and talent needs. So I want to spend just a few minutes speaking to some of the gaps in equity and access to traditional work-based learning programs. From high school students evaluating all the different types of programs that they could invest in for their education, to adult learners reskilling or upskilling, it's no secret that learners today want to enroll in courses and programs that will help them develop the relevant workplace skills and ultimately lead to meaningful careers. With competition for high quality careers intensifying and employers often requiring relevant experience, demand for internships and apprenticeships has skyrocketed. However, access to traditional internships is not equitable, and only a small percentage of learners participate in these career relevant placements. A few of the key barriers to scaling traditional internship opportunities include program types and delivery models. Not all programs are designed to include internship opportunities, especially for ones that are condensed and or fully online programs. There are geographical constraints that do not allow all students to relocate and access opportunities in certain regions. There are life commitments that prevent learners from delaying their education or taking a low-paying placement to get experience. There are, of course, and unfortunately, still very significant hiring biases around race, gender, socioeconomic background, age, among many others, for actually securing these opportunities that can actually make an impact on a learner's pathway. When we think of really well-established internship programs, they're usually with the large employers like the Apples and IBMs and Bank of Americas of the world. However, they alone cannot provide enough opportunities for all learners seeking experience. Small and medium-sized organizations are really the backbone of our economy, and typically they cannot design and support traditional full-time placements. And then traditional internships, they tend to be employment-type relationships between learners and employers. Often creates a lot of barriers for international students who don't have work permits. So we all know students listing employment or income is the #1 reason for attending post-secondary, and it's risen dramatically over the years. Yet nearly half of recent graduates are underemployed. What's worse, if students start their careers underemployed, the research now tells us they're more likely to stay underemployed 5 and even 10 years later. What this tells us is that your first job out of school really matters. And if our students don't start off on the right path, it could really impact them for the rest of their lives. Some of this is due to the perceived skills gap, but digital disruption isn't just requiring a new set of technical skills. Because of digital disruptions, it's more imperative than ever that students develop the transferable skills, the 21st century skills, or the soft skills like adaptability, resiliency, critical thinking, problem solving, collaboration, professionalism, so that they can easily adapt to a rapidly evolving future of work. Just going to pause and take a little sip of water. So how do we ensure that all students are acquiring these skills as part of their education? Well, you can't learn to surf by reading a textbook, acing a multiple choice test, or asking ChatGPT. You have to get out there and learn by doing. Experiential learning can help students gain career clarity and figure out what they want to do next. It can help them develop these transferable skills and ensure learners, especially learners from equity-seeking groups, are building the professional connections and the social capital that they will need to compete in a rapidly evolving job market. There is, in fact, a full spectrum of work-based learning experiences that can be offered to students. And studies have shown that similar benefits can be achieved from shorter duration work-based learning, such as industry-sponsored projects. We created this visual just to really show how expanding access from traditional one-on-one in-person internships, which is difficult and expensive to scale, to offering shorter, flexible, remote, online experiences in a group project format can easily scale and easily level the playing field with an emphasis on equity and inclusion. The best part is that when these projects are customized to fit within a course for credit, students get similar benefits without having to extend their graduation with a semester off, and everybody in that class gets access. The rapid emergence of ChatGPT and other disruptive technologies has really opened our eyes to new possibilities of productivity and connectivity, while at the same time expose challenges that we all need to grapple with in order to successfully navigate this new era. These new technologies are impacting education and its delivery model. Students now are digital natives and require models of delivery that align with their day-to-day lives as well as the workplace. The UN recently published a report that highlighted what educators need to do to implement these disruptive education models that align with these disruptive technologies. Two of these factors include customizing of the learning to support adoption of new skills. This factor aligns with the need of more skills-based learning opportunities that can be customized and scalable to meet the need of students. The second factor is reinforcing digital skills that are vital for the current and future job market. This factor is more important now than ever. Being able to introduce workplace relevant skills will ensure addressing issues related to the disconnect between education and the workforce. This factor also aligns with the key benefits of work-based learning and its impact on students' success to transition to the workforce, addressing those issues in underemployment and the skills gap. I personally believe these new technologies can bring vast benefits to the classroom and support learners in their development if leveraged in the right ways. Many programs are encouraging students to explore these tools like ChatGPT in inquiry-based learning to aid how they are collecting research and data to form opinions and solve problems. These technologies are only going to become more widely adopted in the workplace, and more exposure and aptitude, and the more exposure and aptitude that learners have with these tools, the more employable they will be. People are often concerned that AI will be replacing all the human jobs, but in reality, it'll really be the humans who know how to leverage and use AI and other technologies who will replace humans who do not. As these technologies develop and are incorporated into the education system, we need to be careful, though, that learners are not developing an over-reliance on technology, which could result in the reduction in critical thinking skills, social skills, creativity. This makes authentic learning experiences that much more critical for balance. And I believe empowering learners through work-based learning to connect and collaborate with real-world organizations is one of the many ways we can support learners to be prepared for the future of work. All right, let's run another poll. Let's see if I can figure this out. Here. Having some issues. Is that poll coming up? Doesn't seem to be working on my end.
It's not. I don't know what's going on.
All right, well, maybe we'll get the polls figured out. All right, thank you. I'm dying to hear from our panelists now. I want to be quiet, and I'm sure everyone else is too. So, Annie, I want to start with you. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Annie, can you walk us through your work-based learning journey and the challenges that you faced in creating some of the meaningful and equitable experiential learning opportunities for your students?
Yeah, thank you. It's been a journey, and it continues to be. And just for a bit of context for our participants, at the University of Arizona, we are a public institution with a land grant mission. We have currently almost 47,000 students, including close to 47,000 with 35,000 undergraduates. And we have a very diverse student population, and 9 out of 10 of our students receive some form of financial aid. And so that's just a bit of background. I think what is probably common with a lot of the other higher ed institutions that are here today, we see a lot of work-based learning, experiential learning at the capstone levels, and certainly in the professional schools, in the professional degree programs. That's very common. But what we often don't see and haven't seen is project-based learning, authentic work-based learning that is being integrated meaningfully into the humanities, the social sciences, some of the sciences. And so when I joined this team in 2016, part of my work involved thinking through ways to scale project-based learning, applied learning across the disciplines. And some of the biggest challenges, continue to be supporting faculty to do this kind of work. It's very different to redesign your curriculum to include external stakeholders and real projects where there are so many variables. Is a real challenge, and often we see the incentives to do that kind of teaching and that sort of curriculum development are not there. And so that is some of the challenges that we've seen. I've also had many conversations with faculty that say, I feel comfortable integrating work-based learning into my class of 10 students where I can really control the quality of the work and understand in depth where the students are at in their process. But how do I do that with 400 students? And so this idea of scaling within the classroom and ensuring that every student in the room has the opportunity to apply their skills and demonstrate their skills and reflect on those skills, doing that at scale can be a real challenge. And so those are some of the things that we continue to see that I'm sure are common in other campuses across the country.
Yeah, agreed. Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to go over to you, Ali. So current students are the future of the workforce, and your organization is offering training and coaching for new professionals as a mechanism to support retention and growth in the workforce. Given your experience working within industry and the workforce upskilling projects, what are you hearing from industry partners on the need for more career-ready talent?
Yeah, so my background before ever starting this company was I was one of those employers that I hired hundreds of interns or recent college grads. And I always loved the fresh talent, but really struggled that those young professionals didn't have the skills that I needed as a business owner for them to actually be productive and helpful. So we would go through waves of like, oh, we're all about the early career talent. And then we'd get frustrated and only hire people with a couple of years of work experience because of how much time it can take to train. I didn't feel comfortable putting them in front of clients, putting them with early managers, really having them do work that was to be a deliverable to a client or to a vendor without a ton of oversight. And so that was a problem that I saw, and then started talking to a lot of other business owners to recognize this isn't just me. This isn't just I was in the marketing industry. This isn't just marketing. This is a global problem out there. And so by getting the feedback is really what led to creating our curriculum and the training that we have alongside NACE and the National Association of Colleges and Employers and their 8 core competencies. So they actually just came out with their latest report just a couple of days ago, ranking career readiness competencies in terms of importance. And so I'll just read those out to everyone because I think it's so important to think about. And Dave, you just mentioned one of them. The most important highest ranked was critical thinking. 28% of the respondents said that critical thinking is the #1 most important skill for college grads or students to have while entering the workforce. Then communication, then career or self-development, which we often call like learning velocity. Are you interested in improving yourself? Teamwork, professionalism, equity and inclusion, leadership. And then the last, with only 4.5% of employers ranking as important, was hard or technical skills. And so much is always focused on those hard and technical skills. But here we have employers saying, that's actually not what we need. As a business owner, I'll tell you, and I'm sure, if there's other business owners on the call or people who have been managers, I have my own way of doing things. And so I'm going to teach them my way. It's important that they generally understand the industry when they come in, but there's not a lot of experience that you're going to have. And so by understanding in a project-based experience and, or a full internship or apprenticeship or early career job, just having that like ability to think, communicate, and better yourself, that alone is really all that we need. And so that's what I see. That's what I myself experienced. And then in the hundreds of business owners and businesses that we've worked with Ampersand, that's what we continue to test and I guess prove, so that we're not just working with our own biases here, that that is what actually matters today.
Incredible. And we have a question about, is there a link to the study with the 8 competencies that you can share?
Yeah, I'll put it in the chat right now.
Awesome. Well, I want to go back to Annie and build off of the first question a little bit. I thought there were some really good insights there, but I want to drill in a little bit. Like what steps or strategies like do educators or administrators need to be thinking about and implement and incorporate work-based learning methodologies to assess their success? Like, how do they know if it's working?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's something that we think about all the time when we are integrating authentic learning into the curriculum. And I saw there was a question, what do we mean by authentic learning experiences? And I think it's, I love the question. So what I mean when I talk about an authentic learning experience is a project that a student is working on where there are multiple viable, feasible, desirable solutions to that project or that challenge. And that's what makes it authentic, is that there are many possible solutions. And that's also what makes it exciting and scary, I think, for faculty to integrate, because they, and I should say I was a faculty member for many years. I taught design studios in the architecture school here. And when I was guiding my students in their work, it was important that I had some of the answers, as I was guiding them towards their projects. And with an authentic assignment, an authentic project, it's often that the faculty member doesn't have all the answers. And that can make it, at times feel more challenging to integrate. So some of the strategies that we've adopted at the University of Arizona, it began with listening. We take a human-centered approach to everything that we do. And that, of course, begins with the person at the center. And so we spend a lot of time meeting with faculty, having conversations with them about, what would be meaningful and valuable to you as you consider redesigning your curriculum to integrate work-based learning. And we also spend a lot of time speaking with administrators, department heads, chairs, et cetera, to see what also from their perspective, what was viable and feasible. And some of the things that we came up with include aligning incentives. This is really hard work. It is challenging to integrate stakeholders into your classroom. And it is challenging to guide students in an authentic learning experience. So aligning incentives, could look like financial incentives, faculty stipends to take on new projects into their classroom, but also protected time to spend with your syllabus and with your stakeholders, having conversations with your clients before the class starts to really understand what success looks like for them. Having those kinds of conversations with external stakeholders for faculty is often a very new experience. And so in addition to that protected time, we've developed tangible, timely resources that can help, walk them through from starting, rethinking your syllabus, having conversations, all the way to launching your class, how to structure the classroom in terms of, if you've never taught with teams of students, how to do that really well. These, kinds of experiences for students can be so transformational. And part of my work involves communicating the value of applied learning, for students to faculty. And so I think for administrators in the room, really understanding the value that this kind of learning brings and sharing that with faculty can do a lot as well. In addition, we help faculty think through things like, how do you scaffold your assignments? Meaning, how do you break down this big project into sort of pieces that students can tackle kind of incrementally? Coaching students on how to meaningfully integrate feedback from their stakeholders, from the clients. That's often something new for students when they have professionals in the room evaluating their work and sharing the, suggestions for improvement. And how do you help a student, hear that feedback and integrate it and, respond to it in a real way? And then lastly, we speak a lot about the importance of reflection in courses like this. So it helps students to connect the dots and really also to have practice articulating the impact this project had and the impact they had on the work. So they can, share that in, of course, job interviews, grad school applications, et cetera. So there's a lot of different tactics that we've taken, and I'm happy to share more with folks if they're curious in the Q&A. Thanks.
That's great. Thank you. That's excellent. In terms of kind of definitions of authentic learning experiences, at least in our world, the way we think about it is there are a lot of simulation type work experiential learning opportunities where students are going through a simulation, but they're not actually engaging with any real world industry partners or organizations. And so when we think of authentic learning experiences, we think of like students actually digging in and meeting with a business owner and actually applying the learning in a real world situation. I'm going to go over to you.
If I can, if I can just chime in, I think what Annie said about protecting time, you mentioned it twice, but I think it's so important to re-mention, because that students are so busy. They not only have everything with school and a job, that oftentimes this work-based learning or an internship or something can get pushed to the end. And then they're graduating their senior year. They didn't have any time for experiences. And I think more and more people are, going to school while doing lots of other things, especially when we're talking about diversity and inclusion and who do we actually want in the workforce, post-graduation. And so by having that protected time, then that is part of the coursework and part of the time that they've already committed to the classroom, which they want to be in the classroom, they want to be learning. But if it feels too much to also add on these experiences, that's when, in our experience, we see the students drop off, the professors get disengaged, the whole school lose excitement on the opportunities that have just become available to their students, because the students just don't have time. And we're all overscheduled, and students even more so in their first experience, really controlling their own time. And so I think that is so key and so important. I just wanted to mention.
Well, and that kind of goes back to one of the barriers of the traditional internship model, where students don't have a 4-month or a 8-month kind of window to go and extend their education. But so how else are they going to be getting work-based learning experiences? if you can embed them into programs, and there's a whole kind of spectrum of scale and scope of types of work-based learning experiences. So in earlier years, actually having a shorter, more kind of hands-off type of engagement that you're starting to then scaffold in and layer more intensive work-based learning experiences throughout their pathway. So a learner all of a sudden takes 5 or 10 courses that have these, they're building up that portfolio of experience. I'm going to stay with you, Ali. In your opinion, what is the role of work-based learning in addressing the gap that exists between the future of education and the future of the workforce?
I just think as so much is changing in the work landscape. Jobs today, there's job titles out there that didn't exist even 6 months ago as it relates to AI and everything that's changing across every single industry. And it's impossible to know where things are going to be in a year or 5 years or 10 years. There's no way to keep up with it. But by giving students the opportunities to just be in the field, you kind of mentioned it in your intro, Dave, but like get that's just real world experience. How do you can't really figure out how you're going to use ChatGPT in your life until you just like play with it and spend a couple of hours doing it. And then doing those, so that's ChatGPT, but same thing with like sending an email or communicating with a manager or attending a meeting, like all those things are always going to be in the work world. And so by giving students the opportunities to have some of those just basic experience, how do you research something? And then once you research it, how do you present it back? And then Annie, how do you get feedback on that to then not take it as a personal insult, but then take that as okay, great, now here's what I need to do to revamp it by a deadline. And what happens if I have a test right before that deadline? How do I then communicate that to my manager? What do I do if I miss the deadline? Like those are things that technology, AI, no robot is ever going to take away from the normal work world experience. And so by giving students those types of experiences, that then we're properly preparing students for the future, because there's no way we have any idea what AI is going to be. The internet was basically just evolved to or exposed to us right now. I mean, but back, early 90s. And so there's just, I don't think, or at least my brain cannot comprehend what it's going to look like in 10 years. And so, I think just those basic fundamental skills that you get from being in a work experience and interacting with the manager and having that type of experiential learning is really just the main key to focus on.
Definitely. Annie, how would you describe the transformative powers and efficacy of work-based learning projects on student skill development and preparing them for the future of work? And how can these projects offer complementary solutions to other existing technical solutions or tools?
Yeah, so gosh, I'd probably say the word transformational, 10 times a day, but I really do believe it. I think when students have these opportunities, particularly earlier in their college careers, so I mentioned previously that we often see these kinds of projects and this work happening within capstone curricula and in the professional degree programs. We don't see it in the humanities and certainly in the 100 level, 200 level, 300 level courses, where it can be so impactful for students just entering college. And I think we talk a lot with students about this ability to apply bring your whole self to the work and working on a team, collaboration, all of these transferable skills that get activated when students are working on authentic projects. And I say to faculty as well, it is just as meaningful for a student to do a project for example, with a company and say, wow, this is not for me. That I thought that I was interested in this research area or this discipline or this industry, but this class showed me that this is absolutely not for me. And starting to sharpen that career clarity earlier on in their academic careers can be so meaningful for them as they, move on to looking for full-time work. Our students and Gen Z, I think, in general is very focused on the return on investment for their education. And we talk to students all the time about that. Am I going to get a job after this? I need to know. And we say that, when you have opportunities to work on real projects with real clients throughout your academic careers and put that on your resume, that is going to help you in the long run. I think the other kind of wonderful aspects of work-based learning and experiential learning in general is, as I mentioned, students' ability to reflect on their learnings, to connect the dots. And another key piece is this sort of meta asset or value where students can grow their professional networks. We have at the University of Arizona a large population of first-generation students, and this understanding of the value of a professional network, somebody they can reach out to for mentorship or support questions, is not out. They're unaware of the value. And I think as faculty, as educators, one of our responsibilities is to impart to students how powerful that can be. And as they accrue more or increase their exposure to real world projects and clients, connecting with them on LinkedIn, that's a question we ask at the end of a class is, did you connect with that person? Conducting informational interviews. We talk to students all the time about how important that is. And that is a huge asset that, comes out of work-based learning. So many reasons. I hope I answered the question fully, but those are some top ones.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Maybe start with Ali, but certainly for you as well, Annie. Ali, you touched on this a little bit when you were talking about like it's really hard to predict kind of where these technologies are going and what the needs of future employers might look like. But what do you anticipate some of those needs of employers being, and how can higher education institutions better prepare to address these emerging needs?
Yeah, I guess I kind of have answered that a little bit, but I think at the end of the day, like what they're looking for is professional people, like people who can do the work, professional aptitude, good character, people who have the exposure is the only way that you can actually teach those things. I think, Dave, you said like you can't read a textbook on how to surf. You just can't. Like you have to be in the field. And as you see the numbers declining of businesses and employers willing to hire recent college grads, I think that really it could go down if we don't do something about it. If we don't spend the intentional time to teach these young professionals, these students, the skills that the employers need. The NACE report was shared in the chat. So I hope everyone, even though we're having chat issues, is able to see that. But it actually lists out like what those, not just the terminology, not just what good communication means, but how do you evaluate good communication? How do you teach good communication? What does good communication actually mean? In the workforce today, that means sending an email. That means how do you professionally communicate on Slack or Teams? And if you don't have exposure to those technologies or communication methods, you might think as a student that texting your boss is the same as sending them a Slack message, and it is not. But that's just a very like tactical thing. But I think it really is just giving the exposure to technologies, giving the exposure to the opportunities, to the real world nature of how they can apply what they're learning in the classroom into the job. I think, Annie, you mentioned something about like with the experiences, the feedback loop, or not the feedback loop, sorry, like at the end of it, how to actually evaluate the experience is so key, because it's also great if you get these work-based learning experiences, but if you have no idea how to then put that on your resume or how to then use that to expand your social capital on LinkedIn or through these informational interviews and how to communicate it properly, then it's a waste. So it is super important that we all take it one step further too, to really give them the like templates, the guidebook of what's the checklist and what are the steps you take to get the experience in the experience and then to best leverage that experience for your future. That might not have had anything to do with your question, but I think
That's so important, Allie, because we conduct a survey and it's consistent with trends we see, across the US. We survey our students, and one question we ask is, who are you getting career advice from? Who is helping you on your career journey? And every year, the majority of students say their faculty, their instructors were the ones that said, hey, put this on your resume, or hey, here's a job I saw that you might be a great fit for, or I have a colleague who's hiring. And so part of my work as well is talking to faculty and saying, can you include this in your syllabus? Talk to your students about how would they describe this learning experience, this course on their resume and in a job interview. And I think students still really need that support for connecting. Again, I keep saying this, connecting those dots. They had to take this class for their major, and that's maybe how they're seeing it, but actually it could have such an impact, as they promote themselves on the job market as well.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. I know you touched on this a little bit already, Annie, but I want to maybe dive a little bit deeper. We talked a lot about really great insights around supporting faculty and supporting the learners when they're doing these experiences. But what types of resources, maybe from the institution level, do you think are needed to really support getting these initiatives off the ground and then scaling these work-based learning opportunities across campus to increase faculty adoption?
Oh, it's so hard. I mean, from an institutional level, we've done a lot of work to really try to center project-based learning, applied learning across campus. We've spent a lot of time over the years collecting data, to have a body of evidence to show our leadership that this kind of teaching and learning really has an impact on student learning outcomes. I think often it, as I said before, it will come down to aligning incentives. And I think financial incentives is a big one. I think faculty, especially at the U of A, our faculty are often teaching 4 or 5 classes a semester in addition to service and research. It's a huge lift for them. And so, coming back to this point about protected time. So we developed a program on our campus that I oversee that is directly in service to faculty to integrate community projects into their courses. And we provide financial stipends, and we provide stipends to the nonprofit organizations that they work with, recognizing that it is a lot of their time as well to be involved in student projects. And we've developed a suite of resources that can help faculty from, starting at ground zero. How do I do this kind of teaching? So examples of syllabi, worksheets, rubrics, examples of assignments, interview questions for, potential clients. So we've really tried to hone in on where are those pain points, and how can the institution, how can staff, support and try to cover or, meet those gaps. And I think, there's been a lot of conversations on our campus about how to integrate this more clearly into promotion and tenure processes, recognizing that teaching experiential learning, again, is a big lift. And how can that be more recognized as faculty are going up for promotion? And possibly, is it possible to help, could they teach fewer classes? If these classes take up much more of their time and attention, is that possible too? So, I think it's going to look different on every campus, of course. But those are some of the things that we've tried to address over the years, and we're still, we keep going. We can always do better.
Awesome. Thank you. So helpful. We have,
if I can,
yeah, please jump in.
Well, I was just going to say that the feedback that we've gotten from the schools that we work with is our software really helps to elevate experiential education, because when you have the foundation of some of these skills and templates and checklists and videos to build the skills and confidence with young professionals on how to enter the workforce, how to talk to managers, how to request that time off, et cetera, how to show up for a meeting, what to take notes on in the meeting, because it's different than what you take notes on in the classroom, that then allows the professors or the career services departments to then feel more comfortable and confident with the experiential, because they don't have to teach these skills. They can focus more on the outcomes and helping to support them through those experiences. And then if they're putting their name on the line with the business or, for something else, then they know that their students are going to show up the right way. So just wanted to mention that.
Absolutely. Well, there are some incredible questions coming in through the Q&A. So we definitely want to get to those. Before we do that, though, I have figured out how to use the polling tool again. So I'm going to launch our last poll here because I think it's relevant to the conversation we just had. We'd love to hear from the audience. What are the biggest challenges that you face at your own institutions when implementing work-based learning into your classrooms? Give it a few more seconds here. Interesting. Lack of resources, funding to support initiatives, 72%. All right. So we are seeing, lack of resources or funding to support these initiatives, 69%. Followed by 49% lack of industry partnerships to support these initiatives, and then 31% difficult in evaluating the impact on student outcomes. Well, thank you, everyone. That's very, very insightful. I'm going to jump into some of the Q&A questions. The first one here is experiential learning only meant to be business and internship based? I think the answer to that is no. There's lots of different broad ways to get experiential learning, from traveling abroad to volunteering at a nonprofit or charity. There's lots of different ways to do experiential learning. Job shadowing, talking to mentors are all different forms of experiential learning. In our world, in the Ripen world, we're very focused on project-based experiential learning, so connecting employers and organizations with students to do projects that are embedded into their programs. But I think the answer is no. The more experiential learning that a learner can get, the better. This one potentially Annie. I see resistance. We touched on quite a bit of this, actually. I see a lot of resistance to EXL and PBL, project-based learning, at all levels: admin, business affairs, and faculty. Tenured faculty are stretched and resist onboarding, especially if it disrupts their traditional course structure. But we persist. I see some faculty resisting the idea of non-academic experts coming into the class. More of a comment there, but any comments to respond to that, Annie?
I think a lot about how do we scale this? How do we gain buy-in from our campus community? And like any time you're trying something new, you want to identify your champions, identify those folks on campus that believe in this kind of teaching and learning and can demonstrate it and do it well, and then we can share their stories. So we try to take more of a grassroots approach rather than a top-down approach to integrating experiential learning. And that's part of my work, has been to identify those champions on our campus that can spread the word and show, their colleagues that, yes, it's hard, but it's worth it, because it is truly a win-win-win. where students are meeting their learning outcomes and gaining this incredible experience. External stakeholders are, getting exposure to great talent and, and student efforts. And the faculty win because their students are truly engaged in the coursework and demonstrating their competencies through these real projects. But I absolutely understand that adopting new things takes time, and it's a cultural shift for sure.
Definitely. Okay, next question. Let's roll through these. I don't know if we'll be able to get to all of them because there are a lot of really good ones, but the next one is, I teach a capstone course with over 300 students. We scramble to find projects from industry each fall. How could Ripen help me with this scramble? Well, happy to have a conversation. We'd love to learn about what types of projects are right for your program, and depending on what level of the students and the skills that are associated with it. But the lowest hanging fruit is we have a surplus of projects in our ecosystem, and we could actually be helping connect those projects into your program, as well as helping you figure out what is the best employer engagement strategy for industry partners that are not currently having live projects. So we would love to maybe take that offline and discuss a little bit further. Next one, are any of your companies selling products or services that help facilitate these kinds of learning situations? Ali, maybe that one to you.
Yes, we are. That's exactly what we do. So we work with universities and businesses and other training providers and marketplaces to teach the skills that are these gaps that we've really been talking about. So it's all geared towards Gen Z, all delivered in an asynchronous experience and environment. Videos, short form text, videos from both experts as well as just young professionals in the field with 3 to 5 years of experience talking about their situations when they had to ask for help or ask for guidance on a project, or whatever. We have over 275 different lessons that are taught that are all based on those NACE core competencies, as well as my experience for 15 years in the field hiring young professionals and feedback from now probably 700 different businesses.
Incredible.
So we can talk.
I will share everyone's contact information at the end. But this one's for Annie and or Ali. Do either of you have experience working with engaging students in service/volunteerism within the nonprofit industry? I have seen some great opportunities for students to gain many of the skills mentioned in the NACE career readiness competencies through service learning.
Yes, I personally have a lot of experience doing that. And it's taken on many different shapes and forms, from, integrating a nonprofit organization, scoping a project with them, and integrating that into a classroom for students to work on for credit. And I've also seen it work through a co-curricular experience, like volunteering, where it's more of a one-to-one. And often it's what we end up doing a lot is having conversations about, particularly with nonprofits who might not have the staff or the capacity, to take on a suite of interns or to have a fully robust internship program. We spend a lot of time on our team working with those staff to scope meaningful experiences. And if it's integrated with a course, we spend time thinking through the alignment with the work the students will be doing and how that maps to the learning outcomes for the class. But yes, we've done that, and it's wonderful for students. It's and again, at the end, how do you talk about this on your resume? I mean, that's always something that we mention when students complete the experience.
Yeah, I was just going to say, from my experience in working with nonprofits, there's some amazing opportunities there, but without someone like Annie who helps to actually formulate that into an internship and into something that will actually be meaningful for the students. That's my only concern, is that there's such limited resources and staff at nonprofits and so much work to be done that oftentimes, if there's not structure in place, the interns or students can get lost in the shuffle and end up not doing necessarily meaningful work because there's not a manager or a structured program or structured projects or work for them to do. So I would just be mindful in working with nonprofits to spend the time, like Annie's mentioning, or have them, the nonprofit really present back to you, like what are they really going to be doing? Who's going to be managing this, and make sure that if you're feeling uncomfortable about it, have like biweekly check-ins with them to really, and the students, to make sure that there is value for everyone there.
Absolutely. Okay, Annie, I think I'll start with you, but I can certainly chime in here as well. Within higher education, how can we better entice external businesses and professionals to participate in these authentic student projects with us, assuming they would not be directly monetarily compensated?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. We often, when we're speaking with external stakeholders, companies, potential clients, we in terms of scoping a project, we might say, like, is there something on your back burner, something that your company hasn't been able to prioritize, but is a really sticky, interesting challenge that you would love student input on? Or are you in a active hiring process and would love to have more exposure, authentic exposure to student talent? And so those are some of the ways that we just start to initiate that conversation. And then what's really wonderful, and I've heard this so many times with clients, with organizations, is, I went into this collaboration thinking I would get A from students, a deliverable, but we ended with something, completely different that I'd never considered before. And it was just, that opportunity to have those different voices in the room, those different perspectives can be so meaningful. And the last thing I'll mention is often companies are saying, for example, I really want to reach this population, this demographic of college students. And so they're often the best people to talk to, and they can then reach their peers and collect data from their peers that could serve to create insights for the company. So that's another thing that we see often.
Yeah, no, I was going to say a lot of those points, just to build on that a little bit further. There's a lot to be said about how you position these projects around helping businesses build their employer brand and build their talent pipeline for learners who are going to be entering the job market, especially if you're a small, medium organization that doesn't have that big brand name. By engaging, most students don't even know you exist or what you do. So by exposing and building those connections earlier and often, and building that pipeline over time, we've seen a ton of really successful case studies and actual real examples where students and companies are actually going to do full-time employment types of engagements after a project. All right, I think we're going to call time there. I want to thank everyone. Thank you to our panelists, Ali and Annie. That was incredible. Thank you everyone for joining and your questions. If you are interested, we do have, if you want to scan the slide QR code for one of our latest case studies on the impact of work-based learning on employability outcomes, it is there. And then also, if you want to connect with any of us, feel free to reach out on LinkedIn. We'd be happy to have a further conversation.
Dave, this was great. Thank you so much for including me today, and enjoyed chatting with the audience.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you so much for having me. This was really great to learn from each of you. Thanks.
Well, thank you both. We'll do it again soon. Thanks everyone for joining. Have a great day, and thanks again.
Thanks. Hang on. Nice meeting you.
Really nice to meet you too. I hope you feel better.
Oh, thank you.
Good luck with your webinars.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.